Hey guys, so in this video here with Bobby Kennedy, who I love by the way, he talks a lot about vaccines, foods, chemicals, and a whole bunch of other stuff, and especially taking on big pharma. So I want to spend some time in today's video talking about all this from a scientific perspective as well as a business standpoint. Let's get into it. All right. Want to take on big pharma? Want to take on big pharma. First, let's talk about chronic disease. One of the things that Bobby mentions is a chronic disease emergency. What he's referring to here is the major chronic diseases in the United States. And if you don't know, they're actually heart disease, cancer, diabetes, in that order. And here's the thing. Many of these diseases, he's right, they're actually preventable, right? You can change your disease progression with physical inactivity, smoking, bad diet, all that can really make the diseases worse. He also talks about chemicals and taking them out of the food. But what chemicals? The major chemicals that he's referring to that are actually found in food, air, and water are called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PCAs. These are hydrocarbons with multiple benzene rings. Yeah, don't worry about it. Here's the thing. What you need to know is this. These chemicals are actually formed when you take muscle meat, like beef, pork, chicken, and even fish, and you cook it at high temperatures, like grilling. Yeah, like in a barbecue. I know, I love barbecue. But unfortunately, when you take these foods and you cook them, it causes changes to your DNA and can increase your cancer risk potentially. Once your body metabolizes the food through a process called bioactivation, the chemicals are released and the exposure and chance of getting cancer could increase by some people. Now, some people don't get affected by it. Some do. Think of this smoker who smokes for 50 years. They don't get lung cancer. And then the person next to them who gets secondhand smoke develops lung cancer in 18 months. The last thing that he talks about is foods that are banned in the U.S. So you might be thinking, okay, the U.S. has a higher cancer rate than Europe, right? No, actually it's the opposite. Europe has a higher cancer incidence and mortality rate than the U.S., even though the U.S. has a lower cancer mortality rate. And this is related to the fact probably that Europe has a disproportionately higher incidence, with about 25% of all annual cancer cases occurring in Europe. And even though Europeans make up only about 10% of the world's population. And in actuality, in 2018, there was an estimated 280 cancer deaths in Europe per 100,000 people. In the U.S., it's 189 per 100,000. And one reason maybe for the better mortality rates in the U.S. could be that in the United States and in America, the percentage of the population over 65 is lower than in Europe. So let's get into big pharma now. And obviously they manufacture all our medicines. You and your doctor really have to talk a lot about the risk-benefit analysis. It isn't always cut and dry. You need to determine with your doctor whether the benefit of the treatment outweighs the risk. For example, if someone goes to the emergency room and they have shortness of breath, cough, pain in the chest, a doctor might suspect they have, for example, a pulmonary embolism or a blood clot in the lungs. Now, if it's left untreated, this can be deadly, as many of you know. One way to rule that out is with a CT scan. But a CT scan, as you might know, delivers a lot of radiation. But in this case, it's pretty clear that although a CT scan delivers 70 times the radiation as an X-ray, it's still worth doing because missing the blood clot could be deadly. So it's the same with medications as well, right? So when RFK Jr., who, again, I love, by the way, talks about taking on big pharma, I think we have to be really specific. What current drugs on the market today show little effectiveness or value to patients? What can be done about that? What studies that have been submitted to the FDA have not been submitted with a high level of rigor? And maybe they're not representative of the real world population. All of that is really key when you're looking at assessing data. Is he going to address, for example, lack of standards among pharma reps and medical science liaisons who go out and sell and educate the doctors? Because until we look at all these factors, making meaningful change will be difficult. My suggestion is to start with ensuring that pharma has a way to benchmark. Do we have a way to benchmark employees to a universal standard? This is why the work we do at the ACMA is so important, because we've developed the first ever standards for medical science liaisons, which is the board certified medical affairs specialist program, or BCMAS, and the first ever accredited program for pharmaceutical reps called PRC, or the Pharmaceutical Representative Certification Program. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have a way as a company, if you're a leader and you don't have a way to measure and benchmark where your team stands relative to the entire industry, you have to ask yourself, how do you really know what kind of risk you're putting to patients who are providing information to help inform these clinicians to make better decisions for their patients? So I think RFK's role is very important, and I commend President Trump for putting him in this position. I think, again, very, very important in today's world, especially as we see increasing rates of obesity, especially among younger children. It's an alarming issue, and I think he's right. I think some of the things we need to look at are the foods that we eat, the chemicals, etc. And so it'll be interesting to see with Bobby Kennedy Jr. what he's going to be able to do. All right. So look, if you loved this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments section what other types of topics you're interested in hearing more about. I'll talk to you guys soon.